Fertility treatments have been put on hold at Alabama's main hospital after the US state's top court ruled that frozen embryos were classified as children. Well, the hospital authorities say their concerned patients or doctors could face prosecution. The court ruled last week that any human life from the moment of conception was sacred. Here's our North America correspondent David Willis.
Last week's decision by the Alabama Supreme Court that embryos frozen in a test tube should have the legal rights of children has caused anger, confusion, and the full ramifications of the decision are still being worked out. But already the largest hospital in Alabama, the University of Alabama Hospital in Birmingham, has announced that it is pausing IVF treatment whilst it works out the full extent of this ruling. The hospital said in a statement that there was concern on the part of both patients and doctors that this could lead to prosecutions or to individuals being sued for damages. Now, the Alabama Supreme Court's decision, in effect, opens a new front in the war in this country over reproductive rights. Abortion rights campaigners saw this coming. They predicted that this would be the new battleground after, in 2022, the United States Supreme Court overturned the landmark ruling Roe versus Wade, which afforded everybody, woman in this country, the right to an abortion. So now there have been calls for pro-life campaigners in some other conservative states to push for similar protections to those that have been introduced into Alabama in the last few days. Now, critics contend that that could create regional barriers to the availability of fertility treatment in parts of this country. As far as the state of Alabama is concerned, well, this could raise the price of medical malpractice insurance in Alabama, thereby pushing up the cost of fertility treatment and making it less affordable, and it could prompt some clinics, it said, to close their doors. America's National Infertility Association has said that the court's ruling could spell the end of IVF provision in that state. One big and unanswered question is whether this whole issue will galvanize voters going into this year's presidential election in the same way that the debate over abortion rights did during the midterm elections of 2022, to the detriment, of course, of the Republicans. We will have to wait and see.
David Willis there. Well, let's get more on this with CBS correspondent Jared Hill, who's in New York. So what's been the reaction to this, Jared?
Well, so it depends on what side of the aisle, what side of this argument you sit on, Kylie. So there are obviously people who are seeking IVF treatment right now in the state of Alabama who are saying they don't know what happens next. They don't know whether they will be able to continue with their IVF treatment, with their fertility treatments in their home state, or if they're going to have to try and drum up the money, potentially thousands of dollars on top of this already expensive process, and do this somewhere else. On the other side, there are some anti-abortion rights advocates who are saying that they hope that this changes the way that IVF treatment is done and considered in the United States, especially seeing as how the destruction of embryos is something that can routinely happen depending on the discretion and the desires of the family, whether those embryos would be considered viable, all of these questions coming into this argument. And so there are some advocates for tightening abortion rights saying that they hope that this changes the industry.
And this must be a concern for those people who are trying to go through IVF at the moment.
Oh, definitely. There have been a number of families who've been speaking about this, saying that essentially their hopes for having children are now indefinitely on hold, and so they don't know exactly what to do, how long they can wait out for, because the hospital system is saying that it doesn't know how long it's going to be doing this pause on IVF treatment.
Okay, Jared, thank you very much indeed.
Of course.